you want to make the world a better place. But at the end of the day, you can't.
This is a sad day for me. I never wanted to make this video. Kristen Leo is someone I've followed for a long time, like over 8 years, I think. She's the person who opened my eyes to the horrors of the fashion industry and inspired me to stop buying fast fashion and shop secondhand. I recently found out that she is no longer vegan, and I have a lot to say about it.
I was rooting for you! We were all rooting for you! How dare you!
The first thing I will say is that if you're watching this as a non-vegan and you feel intimidated by vegans because we're always dragging ex-vegans online, I want you to know that while I may judge your decision to eat animals, I can compartmentalize. If we are friends in real life, I see you for the whole of who you are. My ire at ex-vegan influencers is largely triggered by the fact that they are influencers. Their job is to influence people. As someone who cares deeply about animal rights, I take issue with influencers who turn their backs on animals, especially because they influence so many others to turn their backs on animals. I'm going to return to what I'll call the paradox of judgment later on, but if you're thinking, wow, vegans are so judgmental, please put yourself in the shoes of someone who cares deeply about animal rights, and try to understand why we get so upset when we learn that a formerly vegan influencer is no longer vegan. Influencers are people, but influencing is not a regular job. If your job is social commentary, you have entered a social contract to be criticized by others online. Stop trying to shield influencers from the consequences of the job they signed up for. You can defend them if you think the criticism is unfair, of course, but stop seeing their actions as equal to those of regular people. Most people are not public figures with large platforms. Like, it's one thing to be a conservative, and it's another thing to be a host at the Daily Wire. There are ex-vegans, and then there are ex-vegan influencers. I'm more judgmental of the latter. And if you're afraid to go vegan because you fear the judgment you'd receive from other vegans if you quit, you have to recognize that this is a shitty reason not to do the right thing. Anyway, I realized that I share the same tendency as one of my favorite political commentators, Kyle Kulinski, which is that I can be forgiving to a fault when I like someone. Kyle defended Joe Rogan for far too long, he now acknowledges, against leftists who would label him a conservative, back when he self-identified as center-left. Kyle, who likes to take people at their word and assume good faith, was being willfully blind to the trajectory Joe was clearly heading in because he liked him personally. That's how I'd describe my parasocial relationship with Kristen Leo. She recently posted a video opening up about being broke and feeling like a failure. She got absolutely roasted in the comments for being kind of tone deaf, but especially for promoting crypto out of desperation. My initial reaction was to defend her, but knowing what I know now, which we'll get into, I think I was giving her too much leniency because she was someone I had admired for so long. Were it some other creator, I would have reacted differently. Promoting crypto is pretty sketch. She's been dropping hints for a while that she's no longer vegan, but I interpreted them in the way that I wanted to, which was denial. She would never, she's just burned out on the topic. Those eggs in her basket are probably for her partner. When she admitted she has let go of being hyper-controlling of her food, instead of seeing this as an indication that she is no longer vegan, I wishfully interpreted it as admitting to being a bad vegan at times, as I did in my video in defense of bad vegans. But when a commenter mentioned on her most recent video that she is no longer vegan and has deleted all of her vegan content, I rushed to confirm, and sadly it was true. All of her animal rights related content was scrubbed from her YouTube channel, as well as her Instagram. What the fuck? It's one thing to slip up or even fall off the wagon for a bit, but it's a whole other thing to delete all of your animal rights content from social media. Her exposés of the animal agriculture industries that I'm sure she worked hard on, gone. I was disappointed to say the least, but I thought maybe there was some other reason she deleted these videos. She talked about her recovery from perfectionism and feeling like her videos had to be perfect. She had to look perfect. Maybe she deleted those videos because she didn't like the way she looked in them or something. I have had this urge, not gonna lie. I have loads of videos that make me cringe, either because the lighting was terrible or my hair looked bad or something. I fought the urge to delete them though, because I worked hard on them and I stand by the message. I don't always look stunning, and that's okay. But the nail in the coffin was seeing this comment. If you're listening and not watching, someone commented, "This was a lot of rambling. The video gave me Kalel and Raw alignment before their downfall vibes." And she responded, "Ha ha 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 ha, goals." Nope, I'm done. I'm done giving her the benefit of the doubt. I'm done defending her. If you don't know who these people are, they are former vegan influencers who have completely lost their way. Raw Alignment, aka Elise Parker, went full carnivore and bought a second designer dog. Kalel is literally "a vegan was mean to me, so fuck the animals" personified. She got criticized for admitting she was a bad vegan, and instead of sticking to her principles, she abandoned them entirely. She also bought a designer cat. If you're proud of this comparison, that says it all. Elise especially is one of the most self-absorbed influencers on this platform. You think it's cute to be a narcissistic, pseudo-spiritual airhead who takes zero accountability for their actions? That's goals? Why would you say this, Kristen? Why would you delete your vegan content?
Why did you drop out of Yale?
It's complicated.
It's not complicated.
You don't know.
This isn't you.
After seeing this comment, it became painfully clear to me that she deleted her vegan content because she no longer believes in the vegan message. She apparently doesn't want others to be influenced by her videos to go vegan. Now that the rose-colored glasses are off, my interpretation of her Instagram post where she has eggs in her basket has shifted from maybe they're for her partner to she believes she should include eggs in her diet now, most likely for health reasons. In other words, she views animal products as food and animals as resources. Perhaps she views eggs as a healthier choice than vegan alternatives like the Just Egg, because eggs are a whole food and Just Egg is processed. This is obviously an appeal to nature, but given that Kristen seems to unironically believe in astrology now, I don't think she's the most scientifically literate person. If you're watching this and thinking, okay, she's eating organic eggs from the farmer's market, what's the big deal? Kristen, of all people, should know that labels like organic and free range are a fucking farce. This is an organic chicken farm.
In March 2015, animal equality investigators visited 2 organic egg farms in northern Germany in order to expose and uncover the reality of the egg industry. The footage uncovered by the investigation team shows the suffering these animals undergo. The stress these sensitive animals experience is visible in their bodies. Almost all of the animals' feathers are completely plucked. In farms like these, they watch members of their own species die in front of them. Mother hens never get a chance to raise their young and watch them grow. Forced to lay more and more eggs in order to be profitable, after only a few months, egg-laying hens are so drained and tired they stop laying eggs. That is when they are transported to the slaughterhouse, where a horrific death awaits.
If you're curious about truly free-range backyard chicken operations, please watch my video on Sofia Esperanza, where I dive into the problem with backyard chicken eggs. In short, raising backyard chickens for their eggs is exploitative, as modern chickens have been selectively bred to produce way more eggs than is healthy or comfortable for them. At sanctuaries, where the best interest of the animal is considered before human interests, chickens are typically given birth control to reduce their egg output. Their eggs are either fed back to them to replenish lost nutrients or fed to cats. Any operation that is selling eggs is not doing this, obviously. Also, you have to consider the message it sends. A longtime vegan reintroducing eggs reinforces the idea that there's something lacking in a plant-based diet. As I said in my response to Sophia, consuming backyard chicken eggs is not the most egregious choice. But I'm worried that Kristen will follow the same trajectory as Elise, Kalel, Bonnie Rebecca, and so many others. It's the fish and eggs to red meat pipeline. I hope she doesn't, but I've been burned too many times by vegan influencers, so I'm not going to hold my breath. With the rose-colored glasses removed, let's listen to what she says about boycotts in her video Back from Control Freak Rehab.
And what's really interesting is how my relationship with control has evolved. And I don't think it's ever going to be completely gone. And I don't want it to be gone. It's a little bit like a love-hate relationship where a little bit of control results in rewards, honestly. And a lot of control restricts you. So it's important to find a balance when it comes to it, because there's no black and white. It's not about completely relinquishing control if you're a control freak. And if you're the opposite, it's not about like closing yourself in a box and just controlling everything. It's about finding a healthy balance. And even looking at this channel, it's interesting to observe how my relationship with control has evolved. So at first, this channel was about talking about sustainability and exposing multinational corporations that have been exploiting people and destroying the planet. It was a lot about let's understand the world and let's understand how we can control our behaviors so that we can make the world a better place. So it comes from so many controlling elements in there. The idea that you can single-handedly make the world a better place is delusional levels of control. It comes from a good place, obviously, where you want to save the planet, you want to make the world a better place, but at the end of the day, you can't. And I know that a lot of people are going to disagree with me here, but for me, relinquishing control over the planet and the environment and even people has been healing. All you have control over is your own life, and that's partially. So really having such an ambitious desire for control is not helpful. And it also contributes to an unstable psyche. Like every time something fucked up happens in the world, you're in the throes of depression because you failed the world. It was your job to end poverty in like Bangladesh for garment workers. I think it's good to be informed. I think it's good to know what are we supporting financially and what are the consequences that all of these things are having on the environment, on people, on animals. And I think it's good to be educated on how the supply chain works when it comes to the garment industry and knowing how much exploitation is involved in there. It's good to know our food supply system. It's knowledge is good. And I'm not arguing with that. But I do have a very different stance now on when in regards to personal responsibility. I think if you want to boycott companies, that's great. I think if you want to cut out plastic, that's great. If you want to do things to make the world a better place, that is great. But also there has to be an understanding, I think, that us implementing any changes in our life will not necessarily make the world a better place, and it will not necessarily make anything better, but it's good to feel good, you know, and when you do good things, you feel good, and that's good enough. But yeah, for me, I personally let go of being hyper controlling over the ethics of my food and the ethics of my lifestyle. I try the best that I can. But at the same time, if that level of control gets to the point where it's impacting my life in a negative way, it's isolating me socially, it's preventing me from being able to do and have great experiences, then that level of control I know is unhealthy. And I stay away from it now.
Honestly, it does give Kalel and Raw alignment before their downfall vibes. It's all very vague. I think she's being intentionally vague to avoid the backlash she'd get if she were to just come out and say she's no longer vegan. She says she's let go of being hyper-controlling about the ethics of her food and lifestyle. If she had been a super puritanical vegan, I'd say this was a good move. But she wasn't a puritanical vegan, given that she was quote-unquote canceled for wearing secondhand leather and has literally spoken out against puritanical veganism. So what is she really saying here? It seems that by letting go, she has abandoned the vegan label and ethos. People tend to associate relaxed vegans with pick-me vegans, and puritanical vegans with serious vegans. But I've never been a puritanical vegan, and I would definitely say that I am serious. I don't give a shit if someone eats oysters or buys secondhand leather, or occasionally consumes things containing a trivial amount of some animal ingredient. What I care about is their attitude towards veganism. Do they actually care? And does their general behavior reflect the vegan ethos? Kristen's behavior, deleting all of her vegan content and laughing at the comparison to Elise and Kalel, wanting to emulate them apparently, shows that she is not serious about animal rights. I'm so sick of people, especially leftists, not treating this as the serious political issue that it is. What's ironic is that she said this in a recent video.
The next question that was easy for me to answer was, what does future me eat? I spent many years figuring out the things that work for me and the things that really do not. So I've written down, I follow a high vibrational diet. You really have lost me to the crunchy movement at this point. I'm just letting everyone know I am there and I'm not planning on leaving. But for me, what a high vibrational diet means is eating as much organic as possible, eating as local as possible, eating from food from the farmer's market, and making sure that I am aware that I'm putting things in my body that actually benefit my body, and I'm putting them in my body for the benefit of my body. I've never eaten much organic, and my partner eats almost exclusively organic, so when we started living together, I also started switching to all organic. I've been learning a lot this past year about the food system in the US, and it is terrifying. And so I'm doing my best to stay away from foods that have been grown using pesticides. Some people get triggered by this topic. If you want to eat GMO, if you want to drink pesticide juice, have at it. I'm not here to stop you. This is my reinvention workbook, okay? And I don't wanna eat that stuff, and I'm not trying to force anyone to not eat that stuff. I understand it's really expensive. It's incredibly expensive, but for me, there's no price for my health personally, because 'cause I've been on a health roller coaster, so anything that I can do to feel better, I have to do it. I really don't have an option at this point.
So she has relaxed when it comes to the ethics of her diet, but she's become more restrictive when it comes to the quality and cleanliness of her diet. Interesting. I agree with the sentiment that we shouldn't carry the weight of the world on our shoulders, and believing you can single-handedly change the world is delusional. But I don't know of any vegan who actually believes they are single-handedly changing the world. She's setting up a straw man. No individual is solely responsible for the world's problems. The responsibility is shared. You are responsible for your contribution. You may not be able to save the world, but you can make the world a slightly better place instead of a slightly worse place. Your actions do make a difference, even if it's a small difference. She says it's important to find a healthy balance in recognizing what you can and can't control. Sure, but the balanced position is focusing on what you can control rather than what you can't. Not giving up in areas where you have control because you don't have total control. She's making an appeal to futility here. While boycotting as a sole strategy is not enough to bring about animal liberation, it's still meaningful and impactful. I support the shift away from boycotting as our movement's primary focus, but the paper Against Inefficacy Objections, the real economic impact of individual consumer choices on animal agriculture, lays out why abandoning boycott efforts is a mistake. I can relate to the crisis of realizing that you're not making as big of an impact as you had hoped or had been sold by others. Like when I was in my early 20s working for Greenpeace, fighting the good fight against fossil fuels and plastic pollution, I had a lot more hope for the future. I thought Bernie would win the presidency and we'd turn things around. I really overestimated the impact I was having as an activist. When COVID hit, my mental health took a nosedive, and I developed panic disorder, which fucked my life for like 2 years. It was caused by a culmination of things, but I distinctly remember having one of my first panic attacks while reading The Uninhabitable Earth. After seeing the reaction to COVID, I no longer trusted humanity to take climate change seriously. I became a bit of a doomer. So I get being more relaxed about plastic and travel and such things. Like, I want to enjoy my life, okay? I didn't ask to be born. But for the love of God, can we stop conflating these choices with eating the flesh of other sentient beings? These are not the same thing. Throwing plastic directly into the ocean would be quite an offensive thing to do, but it's still nowhere near as heinous as slitting a chicken's throat open. I don't know if Kristen is eating flesh, but it's naive to ignore the trajectory she's on. She says,
I try the best that I can, but at the same time, if that level of control gets to the point where it's impacting my life in a negative way, it's isolating me socially, it's preventing me from being able to do and have great experiences, then that level of control I know is unhealthy, and I stay away from it now.
let's unpack this. Again, if she were this super puritanical vegan who had taken the liberation pledge and refused to fly, chose to go hungry or thirsty in certain situations to avoid plastic, and wouldn't take a break from activism when she clearly needed one, I would applaud her for this shift. But her previous content illustrates that she was never this strict. It almost sounds like she's saying, I'll do what's right, but only if it doesn't inconvenience me. Like, I'm gonna need specific examples of the types of exceptions she's making. Living an ethical lifestyle requires some degree of sacrifice. I've said many times on this channel that being vegan is hardly a sacrifice. It's way easier than people make it out to be. But it does occasionally require a sacrifice of convenience or whatever. Here's a personal example. Over Christmas break, I had a bit of a bougie moment where I considered getting hair extensions. I booked a consultation and I was told that my hair was so fine that the only type she would recommend for me was keratin bond extensions. Keratin is not vegan, so that was a bummer. I feel like this new Kristen would say, screw it, live your life, get hair extensions. But was depriving myself of a completely unnecessary luxury unhealthy because it prevented me from having the experience of having great hair? Clearly not. When it comes to our ethos around consumption, I think it's important to ask ourselves, who would we be if we were extremely wealthy? Obviously, the ultra-wealthy are much more responsible for climate change. But middle-class people often have the same attitude as the ultra-rich when it comes to consumption. They just lack the means to do as much damage. If you became wealthy all of a sudden, what sort of habits and purchases would you start to justify? Imagine a rich celebrity saying exactly what Kristen said here, to justify their private jet flights or multiple vacation homes. Flying economy was impacting my life in a negative way and socially isolating me. Or giving up my third vacation home in Hawaii would prevent me from having great experiences.
Back to my relationship with control and seeing how it's evolved through this channel, I think around 2020 is when my content changed to more video essays exploring politics and identity politics, a lot of woke content. A lot of it was, I think, me understanding the world and how it works socially, not just how things are made and things are produced and the consequences that those have on the environment, but it's more of like, how have we structured this society and what impact does that have on us personally? I made a lot of feminist content during that time where I was kind of exploring the impact that various things in our society have on women when it comes to how we perceive our bodies and the media that we're exposed to and how that shapes our thoughts. During that time, I was learning more about capitalism and learning more about the patriarchy and a lot of stuff like that, and understanding kind of how the world shapes how we behave and how we think about ourselves, how we perceive ourselves. That was an interesting time as well. It was more about, in relation to control, that's more of like, how is the world around me trying to control me? And sort of a little bit blaming the world for everything. So for me personally, that era is also kind of over. And I feel now for this past year, I've been in an era of self-reflection and looking at how am I responsible for me? Not how am I responsible for the environment, for people, for animals, for fixing the entire world. Not how the world is responsible for everything that they've done to me, but how am I responsible for who I am and how can I make myself not only a better version, because I think I am a better version and I'm fine. and and there's nothing really wrong with me. But I also think like how are all the ways that I'm holding myself back is the better way to frame it. And I feel like this is where this is a direction that this channel is going to be taking for who knows how long until I'm over this phase as well. And my third eye opens and I start transcending to the heavens because what's the step after that? Please tell me. But right now I'm in a place where I'm trying to grow as a person. I'm trying to take accountability for myself, for my actions, and just kind of be not just be a grown adult, but be a grown adult that I am proud of.
I'm very confused as to what she means by,
How am I responsible for me? Not how am I responsible for the environment, for people, for animals, for fixing the entire world. Not how the world is responsible for everything that they've done to me, but how am I responsible for who I am and how can I make myself not only a better version, how are all the ways that I'm holding myself back is the better way to frame it.
like, can someone please decipher this for me? It's not computing. She says she's trying to take accountability for herself and her actions after this whole spiel about how her stance on personal responsibility has changed and how she no longer sees herself as responsible for her consumer choices because boycotts don't make a difference. Like, what are you saying? She's trying to grow as a person, but if she's eating animal products again, that's not evolving, that's devolving. If I had to guess, I'd say she fell down some crunchy alt-med rabbit hole and started eating fish and eggs again to heal from the sluggishness she was feeling due to general life stress, which she falsely attributed to her diet. And then, working backwards from her conclusion, convinced herself that boycotts are ineffective. The frustrating thing about ex-vegans is they often try to justify their actions rather than just hang their head in shame and admit they fell off the wagon. Their justification tends to involve pseudoscientific claims about nutrition and appeals to futility. But the facts remain that animal agriculture is destroying the planet. Animals are suffering en masse. Your consumer choices do have an impact, and animal products are not at all necessary for your health. Kristen didn't change because the facts changed. For whatever reason, she decided to embrace alternative facts. I want to return to what I referred to earlier as the paradox of judgment. Kristen says this in her most recent video.
And then also like judging others, which I hold people kind of to the same standard that I hold myself, which is an unrealistic standard. Hello. I'm Kristen, and I am voluntarily signing into control freak rehab. This is where I think this affliction is a lot more popular than people realize. I think everyone has controlling issues, and I see it so much with how hyper judgmental we have all become online. I feel like I've done so much of it on my channel, honestly. Like, I've judged so many content creators, rightfully so, might I add. But still, I should have kept those thoughts to myself. But at the same time, I feel like me as a content creator have participated in this culture of just hyper policing and hyper judgmentalism of other people and this hyper control that people online are trying to have over others. And I feel a little bit personally accountable for contributing to that type of mentality.
Interesting that she's taking this anti-judgment stance now. It's almost as if she's priming her audience to take it easy on her when she drops her "Why I'm No Longer Vegan" video. But here's the paradox. To be anti-judgment is to judge the act of judging. You can't escape judgment. I'm judging Kristen right now for quitting veganism and promoting crypto. And Kristen is probably judging me for being a judgmental vegan. Judgment is not inherently wrong. It depends on what you're judging people for. I'm not a judgmental bitch for criticizing influencers for turning their back on animals or hawking crypto. I would be a judgmental bitch if I criticized their appearance or taste or harmless life choices, things that don't fucking matter. Participating in animal exploitation and being blasé about it matters. Lastly, it's much easier to brush off the opinions of others when you're firm in your own beliefs. If I got an abortion, I'd expect to be judged by Christian conservatives. But I don't view abortion as morally wrong, so I wouldn't really give a shit. I feel like ex-vegans are hypersensitive to criticism from vegans because they have a lot of cognitive dissonance. So Kristen, if you're watching this and you feel extremely judged, there is a simple solution. Quit the DAR and go back to Yale.
This isn't you, Rory. You know it isn't. What's going on?
No, but seriously, watch Dominion and recommit to the boycott. Stop selling crypto and start making banger content again to build your viewership back up, or whatever you need to do to make an honest living. We will forgive you. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment down below. All right, peace out.